Hello, everybody, and welcome to our end of the year vlog. The game in the background is Civilization 6. It's really good. It made it on my top 5 games of the year. If you didn't watch our game of the year discussion, it was number 5. It's the best Civ game. It's really, really good. But that's what is on in the background for your entertainment. Now, we have a lot to talk about, but I think the only thing that I could possibly start with is that 2016 has been one heck of a year. There's been good things. There's been a lot of bad things that have happened. But in particular, I want to focus on Star Wars because it's been a great year for Star Wars. We've gotten Rogue One, obviously, is the big thing. Episode 8 has wrapped up its filming, and we've gotten several really good books such as Star Wars Bloodline, Catalyst, Aftermath, Life Debt, and also the new Tarkin books, and there's a ton of awesome expanded universe stuff coming out on that front. So it has been a good year for Star Wars, and personally, it's been a great year for Star Wars for me, starting our Star Wars tabletop campaign, and then later this year, we decided to turn that into a series, and that will be coming next year. But there's also been a lot of bad stuff that has happened for Star Wars this year, despite the Disney train just unendingly giving us awesome stuff. We've lost a lot of really good people who were a part of Star Wars. So this past week, Carrie Fisher passed away after a pretty surprising heart attack that I don't think a lot of people saw coming. And then devastatingly, right after that, her mother, Debbie Reynolds, also passed away whilst planning the funeral for Carrie, and that's pretty rough. But it's not just them that we lost this year. It's also, we lost Kenny Baker, who did R2-D2. And we lost Eric Bowersfield, who also was in Star Wars. He was Admiral Akbar. And it sucks, you know, like that's going to continue to happen too. This isn't something that is just a one-time thing, and then now we're done with it for a while. That generation of people are getting to that age where there's gonna be some people passing away, and again, it sucks, especially because these people made the characters that we love the way they are, and without these people, those characters wouldn't necessarily exist in the same fashion. So we have to give them a lot of credit for that, and we should remember those people as actors that, you know, created characters that we look up to, despite the very publicly talked about drug issues that Carrie Fisher had earlier in life. She created a character that a lot of women could look up to and see as a strong female character. In fact, it's because of Star Wars, and I also attribute it to the first Alien movie and growing up with 2 older sisters that I don't see women as a fragile thing. You know, I see women as very strong people who are just as, or can be as badass as a dude playing a character. But I think Carrie Fisher is just another example of one of those people that have taught me why I think women are awesome and why they are strong. And while it sucks to lose the people who portrayed these characters and essentially are these characters to us, we need to remember that they've left behind an amazing legacy that we get to continue to enjoy, and we get to continue to share with our friends and family, especially when we, you know, continue on with the next generation and we have our own kids and we're teaching our kids about these characters. So it's awesome that we can continue to share these characters and we can continue the stories of these characters that these actors have portrayed, because Disney, I'm sure, will continue stuff with Princess Leia in the future. So while they're gone, they're always still here with us in a way. Now, I know it's really hard to transfer out of something like that, talking about the channel in turn, but we've grown as a channel, and I think Star Wars has been a huge part of that, which is why I wanted to mention that stuff first, and will continue to be a big part of that with obviously the Star Wars RPG series and some other stuff. But our channel has grown up in a cool way where we've changed a lot this year. We've changed our direction, but I think it's for the good. And with that, I mean going onto Patreon and really pushing that direction, because that gives us a lot more freedom to do some really cool stuff that we wouldn't have done otherwise. And it also gives us an idea of what you, the viewer, wants to see. And we're really excited for that kind of stuff. So the first thing that's going to happen is on the 1st of January, and then the 1st of every month after that, our podcast will be going up. The first podcast is going to go up on January 1st, obviously, but it's going to be free for everybody. It's not going to be a patron only thing for this one, because we wanted everybody to kind of see what we were going with, and also to provide feedback. I think that's another big thing. So Six and I recorded it about a week ago, and I think the funny thing is him and I have never done anything like this, and we got to the end of it where we were done, and we both kind of went, wow, that went really well. We weren't expecting that. We were expecting it to be kind of rough, but it really wasn't. And we talked about a lot of stuff, but in particular, I think there were some interesting things that came out of our discussion in our podcast. First, we get to learn who Six is, and kind of his little backstory, and how him and I met, and how the channel came about, because he was a big part of that. And then I also talk a lot about my history of graduating high school, moving to Florida, which I know a lot of people don't know about, and going to Full Sail and trying to get into game design and stuff like that. There's a huge story there. In fact, I have a lot of stories, because I've lived a fairly weird life. And a lot of those stories will come out in these podcasts, because, on top of talking about video games and what they mean, and the news behind them, and what we expect to see in the future, and what we like about the past and all that, we also like to talk about life, because life revolves around, or our video games are part of our life, I think is a better way to say it. And yeah, we talked about a little bit of my history and his history. And I think the stories that we're going to tell during these podcasts are going to be very fascinating and very informative for a lot of people. But with that said, that's a pretty big chunk of this upcoming podcast on the 1st. So go ahead and watch it. Let us know what you kind of want to see from it, and we will adjust it accordingly. But every podcast after this first one will be a patron-only thing. We're not expecting it to be a highly viewed thing. We're just expecting it that if you're a person who already enjoys our content and wants more of it, then an hour to 2 hours of us just kind of talking about stuff and discussing games and all that will be something that you'll already want to watch. And especially if you're a person who's already supporting us on Patreon, it's like the perfect thing for you as a gift, basically, to give back. So that's kind of the idea behind it. We're not expecting it to be like this huge hit thing. We're just expecting the people who want to see it to really enjoy it. And if you are watching it, again, give us the feedback on what you kind of want to see from that. And we'll adjust the show accordingly. But again, the first one will be free for everybody on the 1st. Everyone after that will be behind the Patreon supporters. Now, that said, I also did tell this story, and goes back to Star Wars, of why SWTOR, Knights of the Fallen Empire, and the Knights of the Eternal Empire stuff still hasn't happened. There's a weird story behind all that, stuff that I haven't talked about, but just weird blocking in the background of why I'm not able to, or why I haven't been able to put that series up. And I kind of go into a little bit of detail on that in the podcast. But trust me, we're getting there finally. And that will eventually happen if I can get past the last roadblock here. Now, let's shift gears a bit. Speaking of Six and him and I doing stuff, we had recently put up the Resident Evil demo. Still not done with it. We still have one more thing to do on it, because there is like a secret item that you can get if you finish the demo properly that will transfer over into the main game. We do plan on doing a Resident Evil 7 playthrough. So him and I are going to finish that in the demo. That will be going up shortly. And then we'll be doing the Resident Evil thing at the end of January, which is exciting. But the reason we're able to do that is because I finally fixed the issues we were having. The reason there hasn't been any other Doom episodes or any Republic Commando episodes is because the way that we were screen sharing just broke for me suddenly. Suddenly the audio wasn't working properly, and it was just weirdly broken. And what happened was my computer had a lot of issues with with Windows, and I needed to I needed to load an earlier like backup of my Windows, right? But with that, it broke a ton of stuff, and I realized that the way that I split audio so that I'm able to hear it and also record record the game without hearing either Six or Alex while we're recording in the recording itself. I use a virtual audio cable. It basically just splits the way the audio is coming out of the computer and what devices are actually hearing that audio. And essentially, that just broke because of reinstalling Windows in a weird way. So I had to go pretty deep into my computer to fix that. We did fix it, and that's why we were able to get Resident Evil. We would have started Doom backup and Republic Commando to finish that off, because I'm sure we only have a couple episodes of that left. But Alex is currently sick. He's losing his voice. So that's the reason that hasn't happened, but it will come back. And on top of that, we're going to do a Rogue One discussion, because now all three of us have finally seen it. Weirdly enough, Six has seen it more times than I have, which I find surprising. But that is the case. And that will all happen once Alex is no longer sick. Now, again, shifting gears, something that we talk about in the podcast is a lot of people just assume that I did end up moving to Atlanta, but that never ended up happening. We'll talk about that in the podcast if you want more information on that. But I am very shortly leaving for Kentucky for a little bit. And while I'm there, I will be in a much better spot, because where I'm at right now, streaming is nigh impossible just because of the way the internet is set up. And that's the reason I haven't been streaming, although I've been wanting to. It's something that I know I need to do in order to expand our brand and to develop that live stream audience for the RPG series when we do them. So when I'm there in Kentucky, I will be live streaming. I'll be doing a bit of Diablo with Season 9 when it starts, which is at the beginning of January. And then also doing all of the Diablo events in all the WoW games. So, or in the WoW games, in the Blizzard games. So in WoW, in Overwatch, in Heroes of the Storm, and probably in StarCraft, we'll see, and definitely in Hearthstone when that all pops up, because it's the anniversary events and all that, and they're giving exclusive stuff away, which I find really, really cool as a Diablo lover. Now, with that said, I'm not just going to stream Diablo. I'm also going to stream the entirety of Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 with all of the DLCs and just blast through that. I will likely upload that as a VOD onto the channel, but maybe not. Maybe I'll just keep that as we'll see how it goes, right? We'll see how good it is, because I want to be prepared for Andromeda when it comes out. That said, I don't think Andromeda is coming out this year. I'm going to be real honest with you guys. We just saw for the first time at the Game Awards gameplay footage. There was a lot of rough stuff around the edges. It was not polished. The facial animations weren't there. BioWare totally just said that straight out, like, we're still working on that. And that scares me, because I think there's something about this game that we're not seeing yet. And what I mean by that is I think they are hiding stuff from us. I don't think the game is as far along as they want it to be, and I'm pretty sure they're going to push it back. That said, they did the same thing to Dragon Age Inquisition, and it was the better for it. So I'm expecting them to push it back. Am I expecting the game to be bad? No, not necessarily. That's why I'm expecting them to push it back, is so that they can fix what is currently bad about it. It just doesn't seem as far enough along as you would expect. Again, we'll see. Hopefully it comes out this year. I doubt that it will, but in order to be prepared for it, we're going to play through Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 on stream. And then on top of all that, you'll be seeing a larger push in videos towards our Patreon. I think that is the best value for money, right? Like that, getting the 2-hour podcast, which currently is going to be a monthly thing, but we've considered putting it up more often, like maybe twice a month for patrons. And then maybe once, like at the end of the year, all of the ones for that year will become public, and then we'll start again. We thought about that kind of thing. We're still kind of throwing it around. We are not sure yet. But if you support us on Patreon, which by the way is patreon.com/OSWguild, then you will just get all of the previous episodes for free as well. So it's not like you just get that month. You get all of the previous ones as well. So that's kind of what we're going with. we're looking forward to changing the podcast and seeing where that goes. And we're also looking forward to streaming our RPG stuff, our tabletop RPG stuff. But at the end of the day, Patreon is a better way of making money for people like me than YouTube ad revenue. Ad revenue has been so inconsistent the past couple of years, and it's getting worse and worse and worse and more inconsistent than ever before. So making a living off of doing what we do is difficult, and Patreon provides a lot of stability to that. And we would much rather people support us on Patreon and put an ad block on than watch our videos without an ad block and just watching ads, because it is a way more stable way of just income. And essentially, when we started our Patreon, as I said in the Patreon video, with this new turnover for it, is we wanted it to give you guys the most amount of value possible per tier of support. So it's really cheap. If you just want the podcast and that's all you want, $1 a month is all you need, and you'll get the podcast, which is great. We wanted that to be the most valuable thing at the cheapest point for it. So there you go. That's probably the best value for money for that, especially considering they're going to be 1 to 2 hours long. This was about an hour and a half long, I think, the first episode. We'll see when it goes up. I don't quite remember. But all in all, we're going to be making a bigger push for Patreon. When we start streaming, there'll be no donation link. It'll be a Patreon link, because we think that is better for the viewer. You get stuff out of it, right? And at the same time, you make our Patreon bigger, which then makes more people support us. So at the end of the day, it's the best way for us to make our living and to continue making awesome videos. So with all of that said, we have an interesting year coming up in 2017. There's a lot of cool games coming that we plan on doing playthroughs of, but the first and most important thing is that we finish our current playthroughs. We're going to finish Doom, we're going to finish Republic Commando, and we're going to move on with our lives after that. There's a roadblock that I need to overcome, which, again, if you watch the podcast, you'll know a little bit about the story there before I can get SWTOR up. But I do plan on getting that out, and once I get that out, then that will kind of push forward. But yeah, there's some interesting stuff this year that I'm really looking forward to. If there's any game coming out in 2017 that you really want us to do a playthrough of, doesn't necessarily have to be on PC, because I'm considering getting my own PS4 so I can play Horizon, because that game looks awesome. Then let us know, and we will try to fit it in for 2017. This is the best time to do it. But with all that being said, thank you for your support throughout 2016, and we shall see you guys next time.